you grew up in the forest southwest of Morgoth, right? Your father, Stranin, was chieftain over a small community comprising almost entirely of like rebels and outcasts. So it was a rough lifestyle. It wasn't easy, but it was the life you knew. You know, it's what you grew up with. Everyone had a role, separated mainly by genders. The men would fight in raids and in ambushes, collecting trade goods and food supplies and just money and anything and everything that they could get their hands on from travelers passing through on their way to Morgoth or coming out of Morgoth, in different places so that the Holy Defenders or Knights of Notney couldn't come and just shut your business down. While the women would hunt wild game, and they would also scout targets that would be ideal for robbing. Both genders viewed the other in kind of an inferior light in their own way. The men considered women to be weak and unable to fight alongside the men, and the women considered the men oafish and in desperate need of their patience and scouting information so that they could proceed with strategy rather than running into a situation blind and getting themselves killed. This set of ideals carried over into their fighting styles and weapons used by both genders. Men fought with largely melee weapons, while the women largely preferred ranged bows and slings. Even your parents, Stranin and Ethna, followed this trend, and your father wielded a mighty greatsword. Despite the art here, a true man, a man's man, is going to carry a big stick, right? While your mom, Ethna, used a longbow as almost like an extension of her own arm. One day when you were very young, your brother, Stranin II, while he followed in your father's footsteps, in more than just in name, he also fought with a great sword. But when you were just a little boy, he tricked you into learning the bow, almost as a joke, to impress his friends, make his friends laugh, and to demean you, right? Because you're learning a woman's weapon, right? Not a man's weapon. Men don't learn the bow. You didn't know any better, though. I mean, you were just a kid. And so you gave it your best shot. And actually, you discovered that you had an impressive natural talent for the accuracy and just the precision that archery requires. And so it kind of backfired on him a little bit. You loved the way that you could focus your mind and doing from a distance what the other boys were doing up close and with considerable more effort and more noise. You had found your weapon, and to your father's and brother's disappointment. Your brother kind of thought it was funny, but when he thought about it, he's kind of disappointed too, even though it was kind of his fault. Father was definitely disappointed that you had picked up the bow and not the greatsword. Your father never expressed any hateful aggression towards you because he had your brother to be proud of. He didn't necessarily have to have two sons that were taking after himself.
Right.
He had Stranin II, right, and that was enough for him. It seemed. For training, your father handed you over to a woman that most boys stayed away from, and one that you had no excitement being trained under. Enid Theus, a burly woman that was once, that was one of the best archers in this band of thieves, and an impressively skilled swordswoman. And you probably figured that your father hoped that some of her skill in the sword and melee would carry on over to you as well as the bow. Enid trained you hard. She taught you how to fire shots accurately and quickly, but that didn't take long for you to become comfortable with. And you not necessarily grew bored with it, but you were just like, this is cakewalk. You were. It was easy for you to just kind of do it without a lot of effort. she didn't let you sit there in your comfort zone. She moved on to providing distractions, like kicking you in the knee while you aimed a shot to train you to maintain your focus, even during like high-stress situations. Every so often, mainly while your father was in the encampment, she would throw a blunt sword at you, and she would try to teach you skills of being a swordsman, because she knew that's why, that is for sure why your father put you under her guidance. And you weren't great at it, at least not at first, but you certainly weren't bad. You could hold your own. There were days that you trained with a sword that you would go to bed with several fresh bruises, where she just beat the tar out of you. And sometimes you wish you'd let up a little, but she never did. You kind of felt like she believed in you, but sometimes, and that was nice, but sometimes you just kind of wish that she just stop for just stop for a minute. So in the community, everyone wore the symbol of the Brotherhood, a closed fist on their outer layers, on their jackets and vests. It represented something. It represented freedom. Freedom from the mindless laws enforced by the Great Council and the Holy Defenders. And nobody actively preached for the Brotherhood or against the Holy Defenders or the Great Council. Nobody really cared. Everybody just kind of knew and accepted that what they wanted was freedom, and that under the control of the Holy Defenders and the Great Council, you don't have any, or at least not the kind that they wanted. And so this was the life. Like, this is the best life that you could have had. Enid taught you how to hunt. While on hunting trips, she would teach you how to track and be silent as you moved. She taught you what it meant to be in the Brotherhood, and that even though the other men and women could be hard to be around and to live with, sometimes she showed you the deeper connection you all shared. That, in a world where everyone was alone, you were together, and you were bound by your brotherhood, and that made you stronger. And that everyone is stronger within the Brotherhood, because you're stronger together. So she also taught you concepts that seemed that were confusing a little at first. These were concepts that seemed to be contrary to the life that you had been brought up in the encampment. On one such hunting trip, you killed your first wild boar. And in the excitement of your own accomplishment, you're cheering about it. You look at her, and she's got this furrowed brow that just completely kills your celebration. She looked honestly kind of disgusted that you were celebrating like you were. She paused, looking over at the boar that you had slain, and told you that we need this boar to eat. But this killing should not be celebrated. You should value all life, and not take one without meaning. This little speech that she kind of gave you, it was, especially to you at the time, this whole idea of that even though you could take a life, that doesn't mean you should, probably inspired a wave of confusing and conflicting thoughts for young Maltavius Whitewind, right? At this particular time. But you figured, that, she wouldn't have told you that if it wasn't important, if she didn't feel like it was important. One day, when the men returned from what was supposed to be a typical ambush on a caravan coming out of Morgoth, everyone was coming back into the encampment, and you could tell that something was wrong. You didn't see anyone carrying heavy packs or loot or additional wagons or anything like that that was typical from a day of work. And you saw your father storm through the camp, and the look on his face kind of sent a sense of dread and almost panic through you. It was like something awful must have happened. maybe you sought out your brother to find out what went wrong, but you couldn't find him. If you asked other men where he was, they would only look at you and then kind of look away. Their faces a little blank. Across the encampment, you heard your father screaming in a rage that you only heard very rarely. This level of rage. You could tell that he was yelling at your mother. How did you miss the defenders in the wagon? The shield had 8 rows of flames on it. 8!
Probably would have tried to find Enid or just, walk away.
You do see Enid, and it looks like she's coming to find you. She drew her own sword, and then she tossed you yours, and said, "Come, we train." So, over the next several years, after the loss of your brother, Enid focused more on training you with the sword than with the bow, and your time with her became more private and secluded. While it was accepted that you were being trained by a woman when your brother was alive, it was less accepted now. And so you spent way more time sparring with other men, particularly with your father. He mainly, it's almost like he didn't teach you really at all anything behind the skill or technique. He just kind of bested you over and over. And you had gone on raids and ambushes before, but now you're going on all of them. You were being put in the position of, you are now the up and coming. You are now the prince of this band of thieves. Mm-hmm. And it was expected that you would start acting like it. The first few raids that you had gone on, you would have probably chosen the bow over the sword. That's what you were best at, what you were comfortable with. Your father did not approve of this, but Enid stepped in and advised him to consider the notion and see how it went. One particular raid was a bloody raid, with all of the travelers that you had ambushed fighting back with crude weapons and even killing a couple of your brothers in the Brotherhood. Your father was in the thick of it, per usual. From your perch, you saw a man approaching, creeping up, sneaking up behind your father to thrust a knife into his back. And you would have been able to shoot that man down with, relative ease. Seeing the man behind him fall dead with one of your arrows in his back, would have looked up at you and said, "You ever take another one of my kills, I'll kill you in his place." The threat was likely from the emotion of the moment. A lot of the blood boiling, a lot of adrenaline going, but still your father was becoming more and more unpredictable. The longer time passed after your brother was killed. And so after this particular raid, you were made to fight with the Greatsword on future raids. So most raids, kind of going forward, ended up being bloody and rarely left any. The Brotherhood rarely left any survivors. On one particular ambush, an entire couple of families had been killed, and these were not like warriors or anything. These were just people, commoners. They weren't really even able to defend themselves, especially not with the heavily armed bandits running at, ambushing them, not giving them time. But there was one man that was providing some resistance, and he had scrambled to grab a club from their small wagon. He got it in his hands and went to whack your father on the head with it, but he was clumsy and untrained, and Stranin disarmed him and kicked him to his knees with little effort. Your father looked over, found you, and called you over. "Kill him."
I'll walk over.
In your hesitation, he looks at you and he says, "What are you waiting for, boy? I said kill him."
Okay. He takes out his greatsword and I guess he just goes through the heart.
You do. It's a clean cut right through. The man looks up at you. You know, his eye, like he's he has the look of a man with a lot of fear, but also a man that had just lost everything, and just despair on his own eyes, and looking at you, almost not with loathing, but with sorrow. You know, looking back at your father, he says, "Your hesitation is weakness. You want to be my son. You act with finality. You embarrass yourself in front of your brothers." And one of your brothers that had been on the raid, kind of sheathing his sword, laughs. He kind of calls out to your father, but like almost directing his voice toward you. "He fight like a woman, eh, Stranin?" And your father turns around. He's still got his greatsword out, and he just decapitates the guy in just one swift, like motion that nobody saw this coming. It was so fast, and the guy, his head, spirals through the air, lands on the ground, and before his body even has a chance to fall to the ground. And your father looks to everyone else, almost giving them an opportunity to say anything that they wanted to say. Nobody else does. And so at that point, everybody kind of moves to get the loot and head back to the camp.
Probably a quiet ride home.
Probably so. Yeah. We're gonna fast forward a bit. You're probably about 25 now, maybe 26. Present day, you're 29, right?
Yes.
And so one day, Enid comes to you early in the morning. And instead of training, she says, "Come. Your father believes that it's time for you to learn to scout. It will help you understand the strategy." Tortilla chips in my mouth. "It will help you understand the strategy behind being a good warrior and leader. There is a very large caravan to the south, on their way to Morgoth. If this raid is successful, we will eat for a year. But we've never attempted something so risky. You will prove yourself and your character on this assignment. I suspect it will take the caravan about a 10-day to get to here." As you kind of pack up, the two of you mount up on horses and travel for about 5 days, half a 10-day south, and you come upon the caravan. And you stay a far enough distance away so that you can look out across at it before without them seeing you. And Enid was not exaggerating about its size. There were hundreds of people in tow on this caravan. You ought to ride further south, and then rejoin them at the end of their caravan as a traveler, seeking the company of others and the safety of a large group. You ought to find out how armed they are, whether or not any soldiers among their ranks, warriors. Count their exact numbers. Make no mistakes on this, Tave. The lives of your brothers, your family. Count on this. So as you're mounting up and parting ways with Enid, she calls out to you and stops you, and you see that something is troubling her. You see on her face that something's troubling her. Almost like she's got like an afterthought. "Remember your training, Maltavius, and the lessons I've taught you. Don't lose sight of yourself."
I won't.
And so she departs. After traveling, traveling far enough south to come back up on the end of the caravan, as a fellow traveler, you turn back north and you make your approach to the caravan. So as you're approaching, this kind of massive dust cloud is, caravan full of wagons and giant. There are wagons of all kinds of sizes. I mean, there are. It looks like there are family wagons and individual wagons for individuals, but there's also like these really extra large wagons and wagons attached to other wagons. This is not like, you know, people moving around with their own, not only their own possessions, they have other stuff going on with them. But a huge dust cloud in the back.
I want to pull up my shirt over my nose so I don't breathe all the dust. But yeah, I guess I'm just gonna ride in and see if I can't catch up with them.
You catch up very easily. As you approach, you see that there are all nature of individuals in this group, in this caravan. All races, gnomes, halflings, humans, dwarves, elves, half-elves, Goliathan even, all kinds.
Do I see any groups of humans?
Yeah, you just kind of throughout the caravan. Are you riding like kind of past the end and, you know, just kind of riding up the line?
Yeah, I probably will.
Okay.
A little bit until I see anybody that looks like they may be, you know, in charge.
Okay. Yeah, so as you do, there are people that kind of wave at you as you pass by. Identifying somebody that looks like they're in charge is going to be a little difficult.
Right.
With the nature of just the whole group traveling as it is.
Well, I guess I'll keep riding up the side until I see someone who's trying to like wave me down or something.
Okay.
Like if they're just waving at me like friendly, then I'll just wave back, or, you know, just like raise my hand. Not really prom queen wave or anything.
Sure. Yeah, roll perception. Riding up about maybe 3/4 of the way towards the front, there's a group of people waving at you. You know, they kind of have watched you ride up. A good variety of people there, just small group, and there's a man that kind of calls up over the crowd, over the caravan, over the traveling sounds, and he says, "Ho there, traveler!"
I'll kind of ride in a little closer. Why, hello. How are y'all doing this fine day?
We're doing good. What brings you? Where are you headed?
I just headed up to Morgoth. Was hoping I could tag along.
Absolutely, come ride with us. That is our destination as well. Tell us, are there any towns between here and there?
Well, you know, I don't come out this way too far, but you know, too often. But I don't believe there is. I'm pretty sure it's a straight shot through some forests on the side of a mountain.
Okay. Well, in other ways, that's okay. We'll always look for a place to stop and, you know, try to get a good performance out. But Morgoth will be good business for us. What do you say, gang? And he kind of turns around to kind of his group, and they're like, "Yeah." You know, it seems like a very cheery bunch.
What kind of performing do you do?
Oh, well, my name is Clyde, by the way, Clyde Gilden. And he kind of reaches up. He's walking. He kind of reaches up to shake your hand.
Okay, yeah, I'll reach down and shake his hand, and I'll say, Tave.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Tave. I and my friends here, we perform a kind of acrobatics that is unusual, I would say. We do tricks with fire. Huh? Okay, 1 second. And so he kind of turns around and he says, Stanley, on a count of 3. 1, 2, go! And so Clyde just like jumps and does like a spin, and Stanley he runs and grabs a giant ring off of a wagon in front of him, tosses it through the air, and Clyde ends up somersaulting into that ring, and then Stanley like makes the ring burst into flames, and Clyde just goes ha, and like kind of goes through the ring and like lands on his feet on the ground, and somebody else catches the ring right as it goes out of the flames go away, and the three of them were like ha ha, and so Clyde is like, well, you get the picture.
And I'll start clapping, laughing. Well, yeah, I'd say you'll probably do pretty well in Morgoth.
We hope so. We had some great success in Tavares for many years, but we've been visiting towns on the way to Morgoth, but we hope to have as much success in Morgoth as we have in the rest of Nevin. So, Tave, where are you from? What's taking you to Morgoth?
Oh, I'm actually from Morgoth. I was just out doing a little hunting.
Hunting. Okay.
Yeah, hasn't been going too well, as you can see.
I imagine so. Well, friend, maybe the city will fare better for you. Well, Tave, we're very happy to have your acquaintance. Feel free to join us. There are many of us here, obviously, as you can see, but you're welcome to bunk in with us for as long as you like.
Thank you for your hospitality. I probably don't even know the word hospitality.
You begin to notice that there is in Clyde's kind of group, there is a little girl that kind of has been like almost like shyly like staring at you, but then every time you see her staring at you, like she kind of ducks behind somebody else or looks away or gets behind a wagon or something. Just very playful.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of keeps this going for the entirety of the day. And Clyde is just like talking your ear off of, all the performers and all the everything that's going on with the troupe and stories of where they've been and the people that they've met. And
while he's talking, and I mean I'm talking back to him, I don't want to seem unfriendly, but can I take a look around and see if I see any like military, what kind of weapons I see on people?
Okay, yeah, roll perceptions. Clearly, you do see clearly that there are some heavy folk around. Just seeing some of the types that are in the caravan, and kind of relating it back to your own brotherhood, you see that there are some people that are jugglers, and then you see that like whenever you guys stop for the night, you see people out, kind of practicing and rehearsing their performances. You see like knife jugglers, every so often. You see a guy that like a Goliath with an axe, and he goes up to a tree, and he picks up his axe and with one swings it all the way through the tree. And, everybody's like, hey, and cheering. Everybody's very supportive of each other, celebrating each other's accomplishments, even though they've probably seen these acts for probably, years. Everybody's just very celebratory of each other. But as far as like military goes, you don't see anybody.
Is he the leader of the caravan?
Do you ask him that?
Yeah, I guess I'll ask. So who is the leader of this caravan?
Oh, that would be Ross. He's the grand magician over there, and he kind of points you to this man with like a nice, a really fine like black rimmed tall hat, and a really nice coat, very flourishy. And he's walking around, and he's kind of every night that you're with these people, he makes the rounds and he checks in on people. And if he even would have, acknowledged you at some point. Clyde saying, "This is Tave. He's traveling with us. He was on his way to Morgoth. He's from there." And he would have greeted you and said hello before moving on. But Clyde tells you that Ross is our fearless leader.
And how far are we out from the forest at this point?
You're probably just coming right into the forest. Yeah.
Okay, I want to go.
So you're maybe like 6 days into the trip, and through these 6 days, this little girl has just kind of been following you everywhere. It's getting a little annoying.
I want to go speak with Ross.
Okay.
Like, I guess I want to go speak with him like right before we get into the forest.
Okay.
I guess I'll wait until it's night whenever my horse is tied up and he's already made camp and everything, and I'll just walk over and be like, "Hi there. Mind if we have a word?"
Oh, the traveler from the south, or from Morgoth. I mean, excuse me. Tave, is it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Very good, Tave. Yes. What can I do? What can I do for you?
This is difficult for me.
What's on your mind? Surely you don't want to join our troop of interesting folk. I mean, don't get me wrong. You look interesting enough, but you don't seem the type.
No, I'm definitely not the type, and I'm not a traveler. So is it just me and him at this point?
There are a couple of other people. I mean, it's an open.
There are
camp.
people around, but no one's listening.
You can roll perception to see.
Oh dang! I didn't roll it in the chat box. I got a 19.
Roll it in that chat box, bro.
I need to get like a 1, a 2.
I mean, there's just like activity happening around you. It's a little loud, honestly. The only person that you even really see is a woman, an elven woman, kind of sitting, at the entrance of their tent, or what you can assume is their tent.
Okay. Could I roll stealth for my like speaking voice, like to talk to him quietly?
Oh, sure, and roll it with advantage because it's loud.
That sound like you peeing.
I don't know why I laughed so high pitched like that.
I don't know why you did it either.
I just didn't expect you to say that, I guess. So you lean into Ross, kind of, you're probably showing like a sense of like, a sense of like on your face that you have sensitive information.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, he sees that on you, and he accepts you leaning into him. Feeling you kind of get the hint that he's a little bit guarded just because he doesn't know you.
I understand why you would be hesitant to trust me, and don't take this the wrong way. I am not here to harm anyone. The exact opposite is true, actually. I'm a spy, and I wasn't aware of the caliber of the people in this group when I was sent here, and I don't want what is supposed to happen to you to happen to you.
A spy for whom?
See, it's difficult to say.
I would suggest making it undifficult.
Go around the forest.
What lies in the forest? The forest is the fastest way to Morgoth. The fastest way to us working, the fastest way to us earning wages, the fastest way to us being able to eat the way we like to eat again.
I understand. I don't want to see bad things come to you. I just suggest going around the forest. I can't really tell you what lies in there, but I'll be leaving your group.
Roll persuasion. Or would that be intimidation?
I think it would be more intimidation at this point. I suggest you make it.
Roll intimidation, yeah.
Dadgum, dude.
You're right, Tave. I don't have a reason to trust you as much as what you're saying. I can't just go to my caravan. Everyone in the troop, hundreds of people that rely on me to make decisions for them like this, and say we're going to go around the forest for no reason in particular other than one man suggested that we do. That's not very strong, Tave. That's not a position I'm going to put myself in, or anyone else.
An ambush is waiting for you.
What kind of ambush? We've done nothing wrong. Holy defenders have no reason to ambush us.
Not holy defenders.
He looks at your clothing and he sees the Brotherhood patch on your vest almost for the first time.
Do I see his eyes go to it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll interrupt him and I'll say, they are my family. Don't make me give you more information. I'm just trying to keep them safe and keep you safe. I can leave because I know you probably are uncomfortable with being here.
You've put us in a difficult position, Tave. But thank you for coming to me with this information. But until I know what course of action we need to take, I can't afford to let you leave. I hope that you understand.
Fine.
He doesn't halt activity. He doesn't make any grand announcement. He goes back into the tent. He calls a couple people over. He tells them to basically pour a drink with you and give you some food. And these guys are big. One you gather is a Goliathan. The other is just a very bulky guy. And you kind of figure out that these guys are Ross's almost like designated security. Not his security, but Ross goes to these guys for security, like probably during shows or something. And so it's understood that whenever he tells them to do something with somebody, especially somebody that they don't know, that it's understood that they're keeping an eye on you.
Right.
But he doesn't say, don't let them leave, don't do anything like that. He doesn't say any of that. All he says is, pour a drink with Tave and give him some food. That's all he says. And he goes into the tent and calls the elven woman into the tent with him. And he's there for basically the rest of the night. The next morning, when you wake up, apparently Ross had spread the message throughout the camp, or had begun to spread the message throughout the camp that they weren't packing up and leaving yet, that they weren't carrying on with their journey, that they were staying put for the time being. Everybody's confused. Nobody's like really upset about anything. I mean, there's varying degrees of reaction to this, but for the most part, everybody's just like, okay, well, let's find a way to have some fun, entertain ourselves here, and do what we can since we can't work. So mainly everybody's just kind of focused more on not being bored. It seems like everybody's got enough rations or can find more in the forest or on the edges of the forest. Ross calls you to his tent. And so as you enter, you see that there are a few people standing around inside his tent. It's a big roomy tent. The bed has kind of been made up and like moved over to the far side to make room for kind of a council almost meeting to sit in this carpet, like a carpet that they had, a rug that they had rolled out for everybody to sit on. And as you kind of duck underneath the entrance, out of the corner of your eye, you see that same little girl kind of off in the distance, standing next to, like behind a tree almost, just kind of ducking around, staring at you as you go inside. Ross, invites you to sit down, kind of there at the open spot in the circle, towards the entrance of the tent.
I'll sit.
Thank you all for coming. Everyone, this is Tave, traveling north with us to Morgoth, under the disguise of a traveler. Last night, Tave came to me and told me the truth of his nature. He told me that he is a spy. And you see everybody's kind of reactions of like, and turning and looking at you like, what is this? What is going on?
Right.
And Ross continues and he says, Tave has given me information that there is an ambush waiting for us inside the forest before we get to Morgoth. He also says that people that are waiting for us, lying somewhere in the forest to ambush us and take everything that we have, are his family. Now, I realize that some of you may not care as much that is the case, but we can't ignore that there are things that we don't understand about how some families work and how others don't. What I think is important here is that Tave has come to us with truth in hopes that we would not be hurt, but also in hopes that we would not hurt his family. Now, before we make any decisions of what to do about this, I think we should talk it out and discuss our options. And so almost immediately there's like a everybody talks at once, and Ross kind of calms everybody down and restores order and defines how the proceedings would go and how each person would have a chance to say what they think. And, this lasts all day. It seems that while there have been a lot of things being said, that little progress has been made on an actual decision to be made. Ross looks tired. Like he's yawning as big as you just did. He's just like...
Do you have costumes? Do you have any experience dressing as something you're not? If you could pretend that you're a very heavily armed caravan, I may be able to go back to my people and convince them they shouldn't do this. That being said, it would still be safer to go around the forest. And I can tell them that I convinced you to go around the forest for their safety.
About a little more than half of the people in the tent, in the circle, all just adamantly, when you said, when you brought up going around around the forest again, they were just...
Right.
All day they had just been saying, nope, that's not an option. Not even an option. Not even going to talk about it. Not considering it. Not going to happen. But even more than that, almost everybody seemed to really like your idea of faking, like doing what they do best and faking that they are heavily armed and that they are, a miniature army, coming through the forest on their way to Morgoth, and that they ought not be messed with. They all seem to really like that idea. Ross seems to be under the impression that he fears for the safety of his people, but he also wants to get to Morgoth in a timely fashion. They've already wasted a day trying to discuss what to do. He doesn't want people to start getting to the point where they're running out of food. At kind of the beckoning of everybody in the tent, at your suggestion of the costumes, they all agree to do that. And Ross, at the end of the night, says, "Okay, we have a plan then. Thank you, Tave. I only pray that this course of action will not lead to the death of anyone unnecessarily. But we can't thank you enough for having our own best interests in mind."
Does that mean you're going to the forest?
Well, one of the dwarves that's been a part of this, a very active part of the conversation. "That we are, laddie. Right through the forest we're going, and not one of you buggers better mess with us."
Well, you seem confident. Why don't you arm wrestle me for it? If I win, you go around the forest.
You can see that the idea intrigues him a lot. You can see that like he really wants to, and he kind of looks at Ross though for permission, and Ross is like, "Tave, we can't leave such a decision to the chance of winning an arm wrestling contest. As entertaining as that might be, maybe you'll reconsider joining our troop, but we can't leave the safety of our caravan or the integrity of our caravan up to an arm wrestling contest. That's just out of the question." And the dwarf kind of leans into me. He says, "I would have bested you, laddie. Your lucky Ross called me off."
I'm going to stand up and go start leaving the room. And I'm just going to kind of look back to Ross and be like, I really wish you could reconsider. I guess I'll go do my best to warn my family of the oncoming military force.
As you're leaving and you're starting to pack up your horse, sure enough, you look around and you look behind you and you see that little girl is following you again. I guess what do you do? Do you go to just like pack up your stuff, or are you going to do that the next day?
Yeah, I'll probably do that when I wake up.
Okay. So you lay down for the night. What is your passive perception?
I believe it's 11.
11.
Yeah, 11.
Okay. You're a dream sleep. You're having a bit of a dream while you're in a REM cycle. Almost like you're running away, like you're running through the forest, and this little girl is chasing after you. That's been following you for the past like 5 or 6 days. You can hear her laughter. You can hear the sounds of the encampment. Kind of echoing through the forest as you're ducking and weaving behind trees and bushes, and then you hear a sound that you recognize. It's kind of a whistle. It's like almost like a call, and you recognize it as a call from your brotherhood, from your encampment. And that kind of starts mixing in with the other sounds and echoing through your dream, but it's much louder than everything else. And this call is not just any call. It's the call of like signaling of when to go in to an ambush. So it is like the call, and you hear it maybe 2 or 3 more times. Something seems off to you in the dream.
Can I wake up?
You do. Like being like confused in the dream, your mind begins to understand that your dream is being interfered with, and that something is disturbing you from your sleep. And so you having the desire of wanting to understand and wanting to know what's going on, you wake up, and for a 4th and final time, you hear the sound, but except you're awake, and you hear the sound coming from the darkness into the forest.